What's going on, Nasteey Nation? It's Nasteey, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you guys some key tips and tricks that will dramatically increase your ability to land your skill shots. Keep in mind, the advice that I'm going to offer can be applied to each and every one of you, but it will vary depending on the rank of the game played. Higher ranked players are obviously better at dodging skill shots than lower ranked ones, so you can kind of figure how that's going to work out. With all of that being said though, make sure you drop a like if you are excited for the video, and without further ado, let's get into it. As I do in most of my videos, I'm going to start off with some of the simpler tips and tricks, and towards the end of the video cover some of the more intense ones. So if you hear something you already know, then be sure to stick around to the end of the video to see what else I have in store for you. For starters though, let's talk about a little self-taught trick that I used when I first started playing League of Legends. So I would say that it's safe to say that about 90% of the League of Legends community plays with the smart cast setting active. This is the setting that makes it so that your abilities will cast instantly after pressing the key, rather than having to click again to cast your spell. This is the setting that all pro players and streamers play with, and overall, it is seen as the best setting to use because it allows you to use your abilities without any kind of delay. However, it is actually more beneficial to play without smart cast whenever you're learning or picking up a new champion. Sure, your abilities and combos might be cast a little slower, but by doing so, you will be able to get a better grasp of the distance of the ability. Having the hitbox and distance shown every single time you cast the ability will in the long run help you better understand the ability and thus be able to hit it more often, even once you make the transition back to playing on SmartCast. Next up, I want to talk about understanding the speed of your skill shot. It can go without being said, but you'd be surprised how many people aren't familiar with the fact that every single skill shot in the game has its own hitbox and its own speed. Let's look at Blitzcrank and Thresh for example. Both of these champions have an ability that hooks an enemy, but have completely different approaches when it comes to landing the ability. Blitzcrank's hook comes out pretty fast and offers very little reaction time. Thresh's hook on the other hand has a bit of a delay before casting that takes some compensating for. So when you're looking to hook an enemy with Blitzcrank, you would ideally want to aim your hook slightly in front of the champion in comparison to Thresh, who has to aim further ahead to make up for the time that it takes to wind up the hook. This of course is just one example, but be sure to consider the speed and hitbox of your skill shot whenever you're playing a different champion, whoever the champion you're playing may be. The thing I want to talk about next is something that I personally feel goes very overlooked by a lot of players, and that is taking into account the enemy's items and abilities. Have you ever missed a skill shot and then right after said something like, "Oh, I didn't realize he had mobility boots," or "I forgot about the speed up from Lulu's W." When something like this happens, most players will come to this realization and feel as though missing their skill shot is now justified. But a smart player would realize that they should have taken these things into consideration prior to throwing the skill shot. Essentially, the tip that I'm offering right now is to pay more attention to your opponent's builds and abilities. Don't adjust after you miss the skill shot, and instead be prepared for it ahead of time. Something as simple as pressing tab on your way back to lane, or evaluating the enemy team comp in the loading screen can fix this problem, and thus help you land more skill shots. If you've watched any of my previous videos, then you've probably heard me say what I'm about to say next. But for those of you who may have missed it, I now want to talk about how you can abuse your enemy's dedication to farm. This is a trick that you can use specifically in the lane phase to land your skill shots and hopefully pick up a few kills. Farming is such an important aspect of League of Legends, and players will often stop at nothing to get as much CS as they can. With this in mind, you can use this to your advantage to look to chunk your lane opponent whenever they go for a last hit. When last hitting a minion, whether they decide to use an ability or an auto attack, there will always be a small fraction of time they are standing still for. During this time frame is when you want to use your skill shot. This tactic is especially effective when it comes to cannon minions because the likelihood of them going for a last hit is even higher. I learned how to do this properly by watching Stunt, and I break it down even more in my How Stunt Hit Rank 1 Playing Support video, so be sure to check out that video if you want to hear a more in-depth explanation of how to execute this mechanic. The last piece of advice that I'll offer to help increase your ability to hit skill shots is to recognize which dodging pattern is most common at your rank. This is by far one of the most important things to keep in mind when throwing out your skill shots. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, each rank has its own individual skill level, and thus different ranks have different dodging patterns. Over the last 6 years or so that I've played League of Legends, I've played in every single division, all the way from Bronze to Challenger, and this is what I've noticed. From Bronze to low gold, players tend to walk in straight lines. From high gold to mid diamond, players tend to just about always backstep. And anything diamond 2 or up, players are typically smart enough to use a combination of both straight line and backstep patterns. This of course is based on personal experience and not 100% accurate, but for the most part these are the types of dodging patterns you will see in your games. If you can recognize which pattern is most common in your elo, then you can definitely use it to your advantage to land more skill shots. Alright ladies and gentlemen, that should just about wrap up the end of this video. I hope you were able to find this video helpful, and if you were, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Be sure to check out my merch. We have it in all different colors, shapes, sizes, t-shirts, hoodies, and many more variations. All merch is 15% off for limited time. Also be sure to check out my Twitter, Discord, and Patreon. Links to all of them will be down in the description. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.